Hi everyone, welcome to Newegg TV. My name is Paul, and today I have a whole slew of AMD Radeon HD 7000 series video cards here in front of me. These are all reference design cards straight from AMD, so today's video is going to be all about the 7000 series in general and what all of these cards share in common. I'm also going to go over each card individually and share some of the features and specs of them, and then I'm also going to be running some benchmarks on some of the higher end cards in this series. Another unique thing about this video is that the benchmarks I'm doing are not on our usual open air test bed. I actually set up a system dedicated for this test, so give you guys a little bit more of a real world scenario to see what kind of performance and temperatures you would get when running these cards within an actual built and enclosed system. So first off, let's talk about what all of these cards have in common, all of the cards in the Radeon HD 7000 series. Even the entry-level card that we have right here, which is the 7750. As you can see, it is a bit smaller than the others. But all of these cards are based on AMD's new GCN architecture. So the GPU itself, which is beneath the fan right there, or kind of right here at the center, is based on GCN architecture. It's a 28 nanometer manufacturing process, and that is what is at the heart of all of these cards. And AMD, with the GCN architecture, is focused on both the performance as well as the power draw that all of these cards use. So all these cards based on the same architecture, the same manufacturing process, and all of them also have Eyefinity support. So here at the back you can see your display outputs. And even down here at the 7750 level, you still get support for up to 6 monitors via Eyefinity. And with this particular card, for instance, you would need to use DisplayPort. So if you're using the proper DisplayPort 1.2 capable monitors that support daisy chaining and active DisplayPort 1.2 adapters, you can actually connect up to 6 monitors to a single card and power them all with the single card. Now another thing that you do get just right out of the box without the need for adapters is the ability to support Eyefinity, that is using more than one monitor, so you can actually have up to 3 monitors directly supported from this card, along with all of the other cards in the series. A few other benefits that you get with this is what is called zero-core technology, and that is that when the video card is actually not in use, so for instance when the computer's display goes into standby mode, or for instance if you're using a couple cards in a Crossfire X setup and one of the GPUs is not in use, it actually will shut down that card completely and cut off its power draw from the system, and that will save you power and save on your power bills over time. Another benefit that you get with the Radeon HD 7000 series is they have jumped up to PCI Express Gen 3. As you can see, there is our PCI Express plug, and it is physically the same as PCI Express Gen 2 or 2.1, so if you're currently running a motherboard or system that only supports 2 or 2.1, it is backwards compatible. If you jump up to Gen 3, it will give you some additional bandwidth and, as a result, some increased performance in gaming. AMD has also included their PowerTune technology, and what that is effectively going to do is going to give you higher clocks when you need it. They do have some overclocking functions available with the Catalyst Control Center, but it's also going to reduce power consumption when the GPU is not in use. Kind of goes hand in hand with that zero-core technology that we mentioned earlier to make sure that your system is running as efficiently as possible. Another thing that AMD is continuing is their support for app acceleration. So particularly for open source platforms, which we definitely applaud here at Newegg TV. If you're going to be using direct compute or OpenCL driven GPU compute applications, it does have support for those, and there are over 200 GPU accelerated applications that are supported on the AMD Radeon HD 7000 series platform. So next up, we're going to take a look at each of these cards individually. We're starting off with the entry-level Radeon HD 7750. Again, bear in mind these are the reference designs directly from AMD for these video cards. So the video cards that you might find available out there on the market, which are manufactured by some AMD partners, might not look exactly like these, but these are the reference specs that all of them will at least start off with. So for the 7750, first off, as you can see, we have 3 display outs. You have a DisplayPort that's 1.2 compatible. You have HDMI that is HDMI 1.4a compatible, and finally you have a dual-link DVI out. Should also mention that the maximum display resolution available for a single display, and that's for the 7750 as well as all the cards in this series, is 4096 by 2160, so you get up to 4K resolution. And if you're using Eyefinity, you can actually have multi-monitor support for 12,288 by 4,320, which is a pretty massive display size. Some other specs from this just out of the box. You get 512 stream processing units. It has compute power of up to 819 gigaflops. Again, has DirectX 11 support, just like all of the cards in the 7000 series. The engine clock on the GPU will go up to 800 megahertz for this model if you're going with a non-overclock version. You get 1 gigabyte of built-in GDDR5 memory on a 128-bit interface. The memory clock is 4.5 gigabits per second. You have a max memory bandwidth of 72 gigabytes per second. Again, of course, the PCI Express 3.0 support. And I should also mention that this particular card is a single slot card. Also does not require any additional power, so it runs off the 75 watts provided directly by the PCI Express bus. And so this is a great entry-level solution, particularly if you're going with a computer that you want to keep the wattage down on, you want to keep temperatures down on, but still have a lot of gaming power. Next up here we have the Radeon HD 7770, and this is the gigahertz edition because the GPU on this video card, which is underneath this bracket right there at the bottom, is actually clocked from the manufacturer at up to 1 gigahertz. So definitely a breakthrough for AMD to have reference design cards clocked at 1 gigahertz on the GPU core clock. You also get 640 stream processing units, compute power of up to 1.28 teraflops. Again, the DirectX 11 support, the GPU clock up to 1 gigahertz. You get 1 gigabyte of integrated GDDR5 memory on a 128-bit bus. The memory clock is 4.5 gigabits per second, once again with a bandwidth of 72 gigabytes per second. I also want to mention that they have jumped up to a 2-slot design with this card. Additional GPU power requires some additional heat dissipation, so there you can see the enclosed shroud there for the cooling solution. You do need a single 6-pin PCI Express power connector for this particular card. Let's look at it from the side. All of these cards sport the reference design color scheme, which is the black and red, as goes with the AMD theme. Here on the top you can see they have a fin-style fan, which is going to direct air over the main heatsink that's directly below the shroud. It's going to get some air ejected out the back, and then a lot more ejected here out the back of your case via the PCI bracket. Now here you can see you get a few extra, or at least a single extra display connector, so you have a couple mini display port outs. Again, the HDMI 1.4a compatible HDMI out and the dual link DVI out. You do again have the same resolution supported with this particular card, and I also wanted to point out that the power supply recommendation for the cards in the 7000 series is 500 watt minimum. Next up we have the Radeon HD 7850, and this is a step up from the 7700 series to the 7800 series, so you do get some additional features and some additional horsepower. First up you get 1024 stream processing units, and that will give you up to 1.76 teraflops of GPU compute power. The engine clock on the GPU is rated up to 860 megahertz at stock. You get 2 gigabytes of memory integrated with this card as compared to the 1 gigabyte in the 7700 we just showed you, and they do jump up to a 256-bit memory interface, so that gives you the same memory clock of 4.8 gigabits per second, but you get increased memory bandwidth up to 153.6 gigabytes per second. Of course, you also continue with the PCI Express Gen 3 compatibility, as well as the high-resolution display available through the display outs there at the back. Same display outs here that you saw in the 7700, that being 2 mini DisplayPort, HDMI, and dual-link DVI. And again, here we have a two-slot card, so it's going to take up 2 slots in your case, and they've continued with the fin-style fan there in the middle with the enclosed shroud for the reference design here. A little bit of air ventilation there at the back, and then finally some more here on the PCI slot that will eject out the back of the case. Here is the second card in the 7800 series. This is the 7870 gigahertz edition, so as the gigahertz edition name implies, the core clock on the GPU can go up to 1 gigahertz and even more for some of the overclock versions that we've seen out there. You jump up to 1,280 stream processing units with the 7870. That gives you 2.56 teraflops of GPU compute power. Again, you get the 1 gigahertz GPU engine clock. You get 2 gigabytes of integrated memory. That's GDDR5, and it is once again on the 256-bit memory interface. That gives you 4.8 gigabits per second memory clock, 153.8 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth, and again, continuing with the PCI Express Gen 3 support, as well as the high-resolution display outs, as you can see there on the back. Again, up to 6 simultaneous displays, which you can do out of any one of these cards, particularly if you're running with the daisy chain support available through DisplayPort 1.2. Here's your video outs, once again here on the back, 2 mini display ports, the HDMI and the dual link DVI. As you can see, we're continuing with the enclosed shrouded heatsink design here. At the top, you can see you do have a little bit more power requirements here with this card, so 2 6-pin PCI Express power plugs here. That's up from the single 6-pin PCI Express power we saw on the 7700 series, as well as the 7850. They are continuing with the fin-style fan here in the middle for the cooling solution, and they have a heatsink here that's going to be on both sides of the fan inside the cooling shroud. That's going to, once again, eject some air out the back slot right there, and then additionally you have a dedicated upper slot here for ejecting air out the back of the case. We have now jumped up to the 7900 series, starting off with the Radeon HD 7950 that I have here. 7950 gives you a big boost in horsepower, so you jump up to 1,792 stream processing units. That gives you a total compute power of 2.87 teraflops. The engine clock on the 7950 on the GPU, which is located beneath the bracket right there. For reference cards will go up to 800 megahertz, and then you also find some graphics card makers that will do some non-reference cooling solutions that will actually push the engine clock even higher than that. You get another boost in the memory frame buffer, so you get 3 gigabytes of GDDR5 memory, and you also jump up to a 384-bit memory interface. The memory clock for the 7950 is 5.0 gigabits per second, and you get a total memory bandwidth of 240 gigabytes per second. Of course, again, the PCI Express Gen 3 compatibility, as well as all the high-resolution outputs that you have here at the back. Again, sticking with the same options, the mini display ports, HDMI, and dual link DVI. Now, again, we have a 2-slot form factor here. The card length does jump up a bit because there's more components on the card itself, and they've also given a bit of a beefier cooler. So as you can see on the cooler here, they've gone with a blower-style fan versus the fin-style fan that we saw on some of the other cards. It's situated here at the back of the card, and what that is going to do is actually the heatsink, which is located beneath this portion of the card. The blower is going to push air across that and eject it primarily out the back of the card here, although you do get some additional ventilation here on this end. Also, cannot forget our power requirements here. The 7950 does stick with the same power requirements as the 7870 gigahertz edition, and that is 2 6-pin PCI Express power connectors required. And last but certainly not least, we have the Radeon HD 7970, the flagship card in the 7000 series. This was the first one that was released, and this is definitely the king of the hill when it comes to the series of cards that I've shown you here today. So with the 7970, you jump up to 2,048 stream processing units. That gives you a total compute power of 3.79 teraflops. The engine clock on the 7970 will go up to 925 megahertz, and that's on the GPU located right below the bracket right there. You once again get a 3 gigabyte memory frame buffer, and again, it's on the 384-bit memory interface. The memory clock runs at 5.5 gigabits per second, and the memory bandwidth is up to 264 gigabytes per second. Now, a couple features here for the 7970 that actually also shared with the 7950, so please bear that in mind. Right up here at the top, you have a little switch. And that little switch is actually a dual BIOS option. So the card itself can initiate off of 2 separate BIOSes. I hope that's the plural of BIOS. And you can use this little switch to physically jump back and forth between them. So particularly for overclocking, which we're going to get into in our the second part of this video, which will be coming in the future, you can easily jump back and forth between a couple presets on that. You also notice here that there are 2 Crossfire X connectors, and that will allow you to do up to 3- or 4-way Crossfire X, which is awesome, especially if you're going to be doing a high-end gaming machine. Again, here we stick with the double slot cooler, so as you can see, this card is physically longer than the 7800 series cards, but it is the same length as the 7950. Another difference here from the 7950 up to the 7970s, you do have a bit more power requirements. So as you can see here, you get a 6-pin plus an 8-pin PCI Express power connector. Other than that, the cooling solution is essentially the same as the 7950. You have a blower style fan down here. It's going to push most of the air across the heat sink on the card, which is beneath the shroud right here. You get a bit more air ejected out the back there of the card, and then primarily you're going to be pushing it outside of the case, which is generally ideal to get that warm air outside the case to keep the ambient temperatures inside the case lower. Finally here, same video outputs as the rest of the cards in the 7800 and 7700 series, that being the 2 mini display ports outs, the HDMI out, and the dual link DVI out. So now we move on to benchmarks, and once again we wanted to benchmark in a real world environment. So what we have here is a benchmark system that I've set up specifically for this video. We'll be continuing to use it in the future. It is now known as our AMD testbed because it is an AMD based system, continuing with the AMD theme of this entire video. So our chassis here is an NZXT Phantom. We went with the white one. You might notice how nice and color coordinated everything is in here. It's red, white, and blue. It's very patriotic. But along with our case, we also have an XFX 650 watt power supply down there. We have an ASRock 990FX, wait, which one? Extreme 4. The 990FX Extreme 4 motherboard from ASRock. We have an AMD FX Series 8150 processor, so that's underneath our big old Fantex heatsink fan right there. And this is sort of the basis of our system to make sure that we get some real world numbers. Also should point out we actually have AMD memory located down there as well, which you might be able to see if I tilt it like that. So there you go. AMD memory, AMD motherboard, AMD CPU, lots of AMD for this particular test bed. So I ran these tests with the system closed up and the side panel on. Apart from the default fan configuration of the NZXT Phantom, I popped one more intake fan in here at the front. For the most part, the fans were set to low for the majority of the tests, and I did do single monitor tests for this particular portion of the video. We're going to do a follow-up video as well, where I will actually do some Eyefinity demonstrations on triple monitor displays. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we ran at 1920 by 1080, which is the gaming resolution that the vast majority of gamers out there are going to be using these days. Also went with a high-resolution 2560 by 1600 monitor, so we could test particularly at the higher end where you have a greater memory frame buffer to see what performance we got out of the high-end cards. So for our tests, we ran the 7870 gigahertz edition, the 7950, and the 7970. So those are our benchmarks. Hopefully those will give you guys a bit better idea of the performance of these video cards in a real-world environment, specifically in the AMD test bed that we set up for this video. We also wanted to mention that we're going to be doing a follow-up video. I was going to do some additional testing specifically with the 7970 video card. We're going to go into some overclocking as well as some actual Eyefinity demonstrations to show you guys the surround sound or surround display support and the triple monitor gaming performance. That's going to wrap it up for this video. Once again, this has been the AMD Radeon HD 7000 series, all cards based on AMD's new 28nm GCN GPU architecture. I'm Paul with Newegg TV. If you enjoyed today's video, please head over to our Newegg YouTube channel and don't forget to subscribe for more tech videos. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.